Welcome to the 2D Web Solution Show, the podcast that provides freelancers who are wanting to make more with WordPress, the solutions to create a plan, take action, and experience success. And now, here are Arelthia, Phillips, and Carron with their next 2D Web Solutions episode.
Thank you for being here for episode 24. We have spent a lot of time, the last 5 episodes, looking into different WP niches. We have explored products and services related to building websites, hosting websites, plugins, themes, and marketing.
And today, during the final episode of this series, we'll be exploring the education and training WordPress niche. I think that this is probably one of our favorite niches, so let's get into it.
All right, so Kerry, when I'm thinking about this, I think the first thing I feel like we need to make clear is what is the WordPress education and training niche. So when we're thinking about this, or when I'm thinking about it at least, I'm thinking about education and training resources to help people learn about the possibilities of WordPress and how to use WordPress.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a great place to start. Do you break that down in any way?
Yeah, I think, it falls into 3 categories for me. Free education and training, resources that are embedded into other products or services, and then paid products and services.
Yeah, and I think when you think of those 3 categories, there's always some examples of education and training for WordPress, and maybe not directly for WordPress, but related or integrated in with WordPress. So when I think of those things, it makes me think of tutorials, videos, webinars, maybe online courses and email courses, ebooks, PDFs, reports, and even in-person or live online meetups.
Okay.
If we continue our conversation, how do you offer education and training as a product or service?
So if we think about it, let's talk about the first category I brought up, Kerry, the free education and training.
Okay.
So when I think about free education and training, I'm thinking about resources and material that answer customer questions and provide them with the knowledge that they need before they can really be our customer or they can really use our product. So sometimes this is like answer customer questions. That might be your product documentation, okay? Articles or blog posts, that helps to give people the knowledge that they need maybe before they buy it, your product or your service. But then also we have video tutorials. Video tutorials can cover all the categories. Like, are they a current customer and they need their questions answered? Or are you trying to give them knowledge that they need so that they realize, hey, I do need that resource, or these are the people that I should get that resource from? So like when I think of that, that's what I think about. What about you, Kerry? What examples come up for you?
Well, when I think about free training, and these could be related to your website or your clients, when we talk about the things that they need to know, like website use training, that is something that you have to give your clients in order for them to learn how to use your websites. And a lot of times you can do that, like you said, in documentation, or even set up a support ticket system for them so that when and if they have questions about how to use the things that you've set up for them, they can simply send you a support ticket and ask the question, and you can either answer it for them through the ticket system or even put together a webinar for them. Sometimes I'll even go so far as, if I have more than one client that's asking the same question, I might schedule a webinar for my clients so that we can all get together, and I'll just do a mass training for a number of clients that have had the same question.
Kerry, you bring up a great point, because sometimes your education and training is all about helping your customers consume what you've created for them. And so it's going to be important that we have some type of education and training embedded in our product so that they know how to use it.
Absolutely. And I think I know that when we were preparing for this, you had mentioned making sure that the tutorials are in places where your clients are going to be. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's important, because we don't want to have tutorials that take them away from their normal workflow. We want to make it so that they'll actually use the resources that we provide them, the educational material. So maybe it's something that's actually inside their client dashboard or something like that. Or maybe it's resources that are readily available for them. But they, you have those customers sometimes, they're just a lot more comfortable with sending you that question. And so you have that resource available for them so that, boom, this is their question, shoot them that link or remind them of where they can find the information. Just make sure that it's so that your customers can easily get to it, even if you have to gently remind them of where it's located. It's like, and this brings me to a great point, which when you get questions from your customers, that is a great way for determining what educational resources will benefit your customers and clients. Because if they're asking you questions about something, especially you're getting it from multiple customers and clients, that's something you want to keep a note about, and you want to add that to your list of potential topics to cover. And so it's like, I feel like I'm going on and on, but I can't stop right now. So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about maybe you have some generic how-to videos available for your customers that when they have a question, you can send them to those how-to videos. Or maybe it's a little more detailed. Like, for example, after I do a project for a customer, I provide them with personalized custom usage guides that fit specifically for their website, because a lot of my customers have custom features. So they get a guide that's specifically for them. And also embedded, it's also, they can access it from their site or their server, depending on the level of access they have. And then that also, like, in-product help. Like if I create a plugin for a client, the help files that are actually in the plugin, the help notes that are in the plugin. And Kerry is a big stickler for, like, when she creates custom post types and stuff like that, to make sure that everything that customer needs to know how to use that custom post type is right there.
Yep.
If it's not there, she's gonna be like, hey, can you add that there?
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that, because a lot of times I'll build right into my client dashboard an area just for resources for them. Maybe it's a link to a how-to video that shows them how to use a table that's in the Table Press plugin that's inside of their website, or even like little notebooks for processes of how to do things. And you mentioned the custom post type thing, and it's important, because when I create myself custom post types inside my own websites, I leave myself the little notes. And it goes so far as even on forms, contact forms, or, well, maybe contact forms isn't the best example, but where you're gathering information. Let's say I have a form that collects information to put a post together that I'm collecting from the public. Well, when I get the email notification that the form sends me automatically, I want to know exactly what to do with the information that I'm receiving in that email, so that when I get it, I don't automatically delete it. I know it's important. My subject line will automatically say, this is going here, this is what you need to do. And I do that built into my customers' websites via the custom post types. If they need to add an address, well, yeah, they need to add an address, but what part of the address? Is that where the whole address goes, or is that just where the street number goes? Is that where the city goes? And the less confusion you can supply your customers when they're filling information out, the more likely they are going to be to use it. And the whole purpose of having a website and having information, educational materials built into that website is so that they use it. Boy, I went way more off than you did.
Yeah, but I think you made a great point there, Kerry. It's like that when you create something for someone, you want to make it easy for them to use.
Absolutely.
You want it to make it so they don't have to think. I mean, really, it's like, okay, it says put this here, that's what I'm putting there.
Yes.
You want to make it so that it's easy for them to use. So.
Yeah. Before we go on, I want to add just a couple of other examples of different types of tutorials that you can very easily build into client websites, and that is WordPress tutorials. WP 101, WordPress user manual videos, that type of resource for your clients can be very, very helpful to them in helping them to learn how to use their website. And a lot of those can be, like we were talking about, being embedded right into the back end of your clients' websites, or you can also embed them into your own website that you might give your clients or your customers access to view through your website as users.
Yes, yes.
So that brings us to the next area, which is paid educational and training, which is typically designed to educate people on using a product or solving one of their problems. So Arelthia, tell us what you have in mind. What comes to mind when you think of that?
You know, I'm a big proponent of like using educational materials and resources to help people solve problems. Like when you can create something, whether it's a book or ebook or online course that solves a problem for someone, that is going to be a product that people buy, okay? Because people, when they have a problem, they want a solution. When they have a pain, they want a pain pill. You know, so we talked about this episode back, you know, it's like when you have a headache, you want some Tylenol. So when you have a problem, you want to find that solution. And so by creating like ebooks and online courses that solve a problem, preferably, and not everybody agrees, but I prefer to do books or ebooks or online courses that solve one problem, because there is no question about what it's about or who it's for. It's for the person that has that one problem and they can do it. And then you do multiple online courses or multiple books or ebooks that solve different little problems. Or different, it could be major problems, but each one solves a problem, one problem.
And
what about you?
I love that when you do that, because I'm not the type of person who can limit it to one thing at a time, but I can use your resources for those one at a time things, put them all together and come up with something that is huge. So it goes both ways. You can create those types of education materials one problem at a time, which of course is how you need to solve the problems.
Yes.
But once you solve the problem, I like to have the next place to go, which is the next step, which is the next problem. Because there's always going to be problems ahead of you. There's always something to solve somewhere along the way.
Definitely.
Other types of educational and training, things that you can offer as paid products, might be your own value. You know, if I have, again, like I say, if I have a number of people coming to me with a specific problem, I will put together a webinar for a group of people. Or if I have a client who contacts me and says, I am really having trouble with this, can you show me how to do this? I will make it into a one-on-one tutorial, and I will let them know that I'm recording it and that I can use that as material that can help other people too. So whether that's behind a membership wall or it doesn't really matter. They're going to pay for that time, so it becomes paid one-on-one tutorials. I mentioned membership courses. Again, those can be actual courses within a membership site, or maybe an email course, which is something that totally intrigues me, and I really, really want to put together a nice email course, and I'm in the middle of one, so hopefully it will someday be released, but we'll see about that. And then when I do give webinars, if I give a public webinar, placing the webinar replay behind a membership as a small fee paid membership is a another great way to take advantage of education and training materials that are paid.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Kerry. I think that webinar replays ties in to also to your one-on-one tutorials, because making those replays available, not just can that be a product, but that's also like social proof. You know, it's like, hey, look what I can do. I helped this customer learn how to do something, or I helped this customer solve their problem. And so that's like the proof for you.
Yep, absolutely. And sometimes it's funny, you might use a replay or a webinar that is free, and you may give it away free a number of times, and that will bring in paid customers. Now, granted, that's not paid educational material, but in turn, you're getting paid for the fact that you have that information out there.
Okay. All right.
So I think the next step is to start looking at tools. So tools and resources that you use to create the educational and training materials that you provide for your clients.
Okay, so how about we kind of like stick with the flow of like, I think before I talked about like tutorials and videos, and you even talked about like videos and webinars and stuff. So
Sure.
let's look at that first. So we're talking about video type things. I like to use Camtasia on the PC. I don't like Camtasia on the Mac. Screencastify, which is a Chrome extension for creating screen shares. Audacity for improving your audio. Webinar Ninja for webinars. They've oh my goodness, they've redone their platform. Okay. Content Samurai. Right now, I'm really in love with Content Samurai. For my quick stuff where I already have the text and I'm just putting my text in and creating these videos and then doing a quick voiceover. Oh my goodness, it is great.
That is a fantastic tool, and I've noticed a lot of your videos coming out using that lately. And I even wrote an article about the importance of having video on your website these days. And Content Samurai is definitely one of the easiest tools to use.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just started. I did my first videos this week that have where I'm putting my slides in, but then also putting in external video into it. So I'm going to see how those turn out. So far, they're looking great. And so I'm excited about it. So I could go on and on and on about Content Samurai, Kerry. But what are some tools that you use for maybe video type material?
Well, I use ScreenFlow for the Mac, and I know that you mentioned Camtasia. I also have used Camtasia, but you're right. I don't like Camtasia on the Mac either, so I ended up going with ScreenFlow. I have a number of cartoon type creating video makers, one being Powtoons, which is one of my favorite. I have found a way to go in and create a template, for lack of a better term. So I use Powtoons quite a bit for doing cartoon type of video. And then of course we have Zoom, which we use for our webinars here on 2D Web Solutions. Zoom is a great way to do a quick meeting, whether it's using audio, just audio, or if you want to use the video and record. I use Slack, not for video, but for chatting purposes and communicating perhaps during video recordings. It becomes very easy. And then going on a little bit farther to more along the lines of images, or not where to find images, but how to capture images and then reuse them within video. Snagit and Jing are some of my favorites. I use Jing. Jing, it just is real super easy for me. And I know Snagit I've used and have that as well. And it is also really simple to use. And those two, actually, Snagit and Jing, we have been talking about quite a bit in some other webinars on some other channels regarding digital marketing. So a Snagit is an easy enough tool for your clients to use as well. So keep that in mind as you move forward. So that brings us on to maybe online courses and email courses. And I'm just going to jump right in and start this and then hand it over to you, Arelthia. For my email, and putting together online courses and email courses, I will be using MailChimp and Aweber. I love to capture information and surveys and things with Gravity Forms and their add-ons. And of course, putting courses together with pods and using custom post types is a pretty simplistic way of creating some basic educational and training materials. What do you use for online courses or email?
For online courses, actually I'll start with email because I could talk for a long time about online courses. For email, I'm trying to transition from using MailChimp to MailerLite. If you're looking for a resource where you can grow your list and your costs won't grow substantially right away, MailerLite is something you might want to look into. Then also like for online courses. Okay, so online courses, I think about it from the perspective of a teacher. Like, yes, there's courseware, and courseware is great. Okay, but for me, I kind of prefer, and courseware is a WordPress plugin for those that don't know. It's by Fly Plugins. I do like the product, courseware, but LearnDash is a much better WordPress plugin for creating an online course. It's set up more like a learning management system, and the flow is just more of what I'm used to as a teacher. Also, like if you want to do online courses, some other places you can look into that maybe you don't want to do it from your website. Because, Kerry, there are some people that don't want to host a course from their website.
Absolutely.
There's Udemy, okay? And I know some people are like, oh, no, not Udemy. But Udemy can be a great resource that'll help you get your name out there as an authority in your market, okay? In whatever niche that you're in. Then there's Teachable. Teachable, if you're serious about online courses, you're serious about building your audience, you're serious about growing your platform, then Teachable is something you should really look into. They help you learn how to develop your online courses. They do a lot of work with that so that you can be successful. But again, that's if you already know you're serious. And I would say if you're going to do Teachable, you should already have an audience, okay? That's not for the, oh, I'm just starting out type of person. It's the, you already have an audience that you can bring in right away.
Those are some fantastic tips. Those are really good resources.
Okay. Thank you, Kerry. So we've talked about video, kind of threw some audio in there, online courses, email courses, webinars. What about like ebooks, PDFs, reports? I'm thinking like these days, to me, all that means the same thing.
It does, but everybody calls it something different. So
yes.
We've got it all covered here.
Yes. All right. So what do you do for when you want to make an ebook or a PDF or a report, Kerry? What are your go-to tools?
Well, of course, the fail-safe is always Word, or if you're a Mac user, Pages. I actually prefer Word over Pages if I'm going to use a word processor. And then once I have created whatever a document or PDF using Word, then sometimes I need to edit it and add things in, change things around. I'll sometimes use PDF Pen. I don't use it a lot, but I do have it, and I have used it on the occasion where I really needed that type of a tool.
So can you explain what is PDF Pen for, Kerry?
PDF Pen is really for editing PDFs. So
okay.
and inserting things, your information. Like I said, I don't have a lot of experience with it. What I use it for is getting drafts started for things. If I am finding information in a PDF and I need to copy it or change it, or it's for those minute little changes within a PDF.
Okay.
And then let's see, whenever I'm writing, Grammarly, I've got to have Grammarly on everything. It keeps my grammar in line, and it keeps my vocabulary growing.
Yes, you are a Grammarly superstar. Okay.
Well,
Grammarly.
I don't know if I would go that far. I do still have a copywriter. Thank you, Barbara.
Yes, Barb.
She helps me quite a bit when it comes to making sure things are wordsmithed properly and in the right order and things. But yeah, I love Grammarly. And
what about your images, Kerry?
Images. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on and on and on about images. I love images. My main go-to place to find images is Storyblocks, which used to be called Graphic Stock, and they've changed names and combined all three of their Graphic Stock, video blocks, and the audio blocks are now all in one called Storyblocks.
Okay, and Storyblocks, that is royalty free.
Yes, you can use those images any way you want, commercial use or not. personal, commercial, you can change them, you can modify them, you can do any of that stuff. What I like a lot about story blocks is when and if somebody questions the validity of the image being copyrighted, or they claim you're against, you're not using it as appropriate, you simply send story blocks an email and they take care of it all, and you don't have to. So it's a paid service, but it is well worth it. Well worth it.
Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree. Kerry got me into story blocks a year, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I've been using it ever since. And that just leads me right into like the first tool that I think is that when I'm thinking of ebooks and PDFs and reports and stuff, which is Canva. Canva is a great resource for when you want to create ebooks, PDFs, reports, infographics, things like that. Scrivener, if I'm going to create an ebook, like if I know it's going to be like multiple chapters, Scrivener is definitely my go-to. And then Google Drive, I use Google Docs a lot to create my PDFs. If it's not going to be that large of a document, then I go in there, set things up, and primarily because it maintains that history for me. So if I do something and accidentally delete stuff I want to keep, it allows me to get that stuff back.
And we all know what's the best thing about using Google Drive. What have we been hearing over and over and over in a number of other webinars that we attend and participate in?
You know, once you are comfortable with your stuff being out there in the world, and you make it public, Google loves itself. So Google likes to show off what other people are doing with Google products. So
ding, 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 ding.
That is it. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So
we talked a little bit about meetups toward the beginning, but I think that if we go too in depth on that here, it's going to be a bit too much, because I think the meetups could entirely be a completely separate podcast. There's so many things you would have to do here or could do here that we'll just leave it for our readers and our listeners to think about. But let's break it down just a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit of some of the things you might think about during a meetup?
Okay, so, the thing about a meetup is that a meetup, pretty much just like Kerry said, it's just where you're meeting people in person for the most part. It could be a local coffee shop. It could be a full-blown event where you need an event location, tickets. You could need to set up, something for lodging, travel, food. So it can really get into, that's a lot of things that need to be considered. And so we're going to leave that topic. We're not going to really focus on that. I think the best way for someone to get started would be one of the topics that we've already covered. So let's go ahead on and push forward, Kerry.
Sounds like a plan.
Are there any details of offering education and training as a WordPress niche that we could be easily overlooking?
Yes, and I think one of the things that comes to mind for me right away is trademarks and copyright. You really have to think about and know the rules and regulations for trademarks and copyrights. So make sure whenever you're using images or audio that you know what you can use legally and how to use it legally, and that way you protect yourself and your business.
Okay. So also I would say, make sure you think about how you're going to market your product or your service. Also make sure think about like, where are you going to market? Not just how, but how you're going to market, where you're going to market, and be very clear about who your audience is for this product, or service, because it may not be your current clients.
Right. And remember also, if you're going to be creating educational and training materials, you need to make sure that you keep whatever information you have out there current. So you might need to put out another version. You might need to make updates to the information that's already there.
And I think that one is overlooked a lot by people, Kerry, because especially when you're dealing with stuff related to WordPress, WordPress changes quickly. Okay.
Yes, it does.
And you have to, if you plan to keep selling your courses, or your services related to the courses, then you have to keep that information up to date and be ready to support people when they need you.
And isn't it so frustrating when you need information and you actually ask Google and it gives you something that is so outdated that it doesn't even apply anymore? That's so frustrating to me. It's like, I wish these people would just update their material.
Yeah, that can be frustrating. I mean, from the user standpoint, from the customer standpoint, it's extremely frustrating. And then from the creator standpoint, it's frustrating as well. So just be mindful of that when you go into it.
Yep. And lastly, something to think about is, of course, how are you going to support anybody who is using your materials? What kind of support system do you want to have in place, or are you going to create and put in place to accommodate your clients?
So, Kerry, let's say I've decided I want to do this. What are some next steps for moving into the WordPress education and training niche?
Well, we do know that the 2D straight A strategies that we used in pinpointing the perfect problem is a great place to start, particularly looking at existing alternatives and identifying any gaps in the educational and training products and services that are currently available.
Now, guys, we don't want to tell you to spend 6 months looking at other products or services that are out there, but that is important to do in the beginning before you start creating your own. Because that goes right into also find out what type of education or training your clients need or want. This goes back to, like Kerry and I talked about this a lot, but this goes back to asking your clients where they're struggling, what tools they're currently using that are working, and which ones are not.
And don't forget, once you find a gap, you can also use the 2D declassification to determine if this niche is right for you. Do you want to develop, delegate, or dismiss offering the education and training based on the skills that you have or that you're willing to learn?
All right. So guys, our action plan for today: research existing education and training solutions and determine a gap you can fill.
Yep. But before you go, please, we'd love to hear more from you. So we're going to have some wrap-up questions for you. And the first one is, what is the most appealing aspect about WordPress education and training as a WordPress niche? Meaning, when you look at, if you're considering the WordPress education and training niche, what is the most appealing aspect of that for you?
Okay, and guys, what questions do you have about offering WordPress education and training as a service? We want to know your questions so we can provide you with those answers.
And for those of you who already offer WordPress education and training niche, what additional advice do you have for us and for our readers?
Guys, we know your comments can help us or someone else in the process, and we want to thank you so much for being here.
So now go out and create your plan, take action, and experience your success.
Kerry and Arelthia invite you to start your plan by taking this action. Submit your questions by visiting their website and subscribe to their 2D podcast at 2dwebsolutions.com.